I think what you saw in the documentary, you saw people actually very vocal and very open about what they thought in terms of where they belong, motherlands, and all that. And I think Yorgos, of course, helped a lot in order to bring that out. The other thing that I liked about Yorgos was that even though he was within the community, it was clear from the start that we were not going to do an hagiography of the community, a heroic narrative about the plight of the community. The Maronite community has problems, which we have shown last night. At the same time, it's a very resilient community. So we didn't want to show a passive, a passive community that was about to disappear and all that. And I was glad that Yorgos, from the start, was very open to that. Another question: why did we do this kind of documentary? This is where I should read from my SMS from Yorgos. He said, please tell them, κύριος λόγος ήταν για να μάθουν οι άλλοι αυτά που για αρκετά χρόνια κρύβαν. So that you can learn, so that others can learn what we have been hiding for many years. In the beginning I thought, it's very interesting because I read this as meaning what we, the Maronites, have been hiding all these years. And then he sent me a second SMS. I said, okay. And he said, what he meant, of course, is we Cypriots have been hiding. That he some experience from school, his school teacher saying openly and showing him that the Maronites have not offered anything to this country in terms of resistance. And all that, so that they didn't have any contribution to show to the history of this country. He was in Kiko Gymnasium, so you can imagine who was the headmistress at the time, who said that. For me, I think it was also the idea of showing a lot of the things that the Maronites have been hiding. I think it's a very interesting community. I think there is definitely, for me, there is a compelling and rich story here that, as I said, I have been doing research, but there's so many things that you can do with images and with a documentary that you cannot do with writing. And that ability actually to show the nuances, which you might have seen in the film as well. When they say, yes, Lebanon is my motherland, and some really feel that it was their motherland. Some, however, it was a tongue-in-cheek, this is my motherland. It was not quite, someone said, well, it's my motherland, but how about Abuel? Abuel is equally a motherland. It was very interesting also to show how others responded to what people said about who they were. So all this was possible to do. It was possible to show this through a documentary in ways that would have been much more difficult, if not impossible to show by simply writing. What was the budget? Kind of banal question, but an important one. Did we have a budget? We had a small budget, actually. I need to thank Priyo, as we thank in the documentary, for they bought us a camera because we wanted to shoot for some time. We didn't have a plot. We had some ideas. There were some puzzles. Where we were looking to the predicament of the Maronites living in the south and in the north, having good relationships with the Greek Cypriots and the Turkish Cypriots. So we knew some questions, but we didn't have a narrative. So we wanted time. We couldn't rent equipment; it would have been too expensive. So they bought us a camera. and also a desktop to to edit in time. And it took 2 years of shooting. We took our time to develop this, and of course they pay for the travel expenses for following the Maronites, the football team of the veterans of Tormagiri who went to Peru to play football. It was a bit of a risky operation, but I think it was very fruitful in terms of what it shows. Okay, another question that you may want to ask, is Lebanon the third motherland? Is it? Yes and no. Yes, it is, especially when you think about the third motherland, the motherland in the Cypriot context of 2 motherlands, the Greece and Turkey. So the third one is Lebanon. There were enough references to make that case. I would also say no, because you need to think of the notion of the motherland more broadly. And this we try to do very much in terms of, I hope it came out. It's not just the Midera Patrida in Greek, not just the big motherland. It's the Patrida, which is the motherland. One question there is not just the third, which is the first or the second. So that was a very open question, which we wanted to leave it open. And as you have seen, there were different interpretations. And I think this made the film much more interesting, the issue much more interesting. Is Patria Lebanon? Is it Cyprus? Is it Greece? Is it Turkey? Is it Syria? This didn't come out very strongly, but Syria. Why Lebanon and not Syria? Linguistically, the Arabic that the Maronites speak in Cyprus is linked to Malula region, Syria and Iraq, rather than Lebanon. Is that the Maroc? Is it Gormagidis? Is it Maronia, Maroniteness? Is it Maronite Catholicism? Is it Lebanon football team? Is it Apoel? And so on. So there are all kinds of projections one could make that we simply wanted to expose rather than, of course, answer in a definitive way. Another question, are the Maronites confused about where they belong? Yes, at least some of them or most of them. Yes, they are confused, but they are not the only ones. Greek Cypriots are confused. We got some critique from within the Maronite community. Some of the people who saw it when we showed it in Nicosia, some critique was that some liked it very much. They thought it was honest in bringing out some of the issues, but some criticized this point of confusion, that there was, that it didn't show that are we Libanese, are we not, are we Greek, or what is your take, what is your message? And of course, you find this kind of confusion in identity questions. Identity politics are confusing. These are not straightforward questions about where one belongs. We are not being asked where we belong, most of them. We are being claimed into motherlands rather than being asked. And on the rare occasion where we are being asked, as in the case of the Maronite community in 1960, as you have seen from the documentary, it was a question that compelled them to choose between 2 communities, and by choosing also to deny their own ethnicity. They were recognized as a religious minority, not as an ethnic minority, with people that had a separate language. So even when you are given the chance to self-define yourself, well, they were asked to define themselves within 2 options and not as they would generally define themselves, at least those from Gormagidis. So these kind of questions are loaded whenever they are being asked. And there are issues about desire of belonging where you might not actually belong. or denial to belong, where you feel you have the right to belong. Questions of belonging are also aporetic. Are we here? Are we not here? Can I belong in this community when I don't really speak the language? When the majority community has a different religion or denomination than mine? There are all these kind of aporias, and hybridity debates, which you are aware, etc. In many respects, they are in such situation, the Maronites. So belonging as an aporia. It was very much something that I hope came out of this documentary, but also strategic belonging. Belonging as a strategy. Where I belong depends, it's not who I am essentially, but where I belong depends on what your policy is. If your policy is such that will deny me certain rights if I belong to this community, well, I can belong to the other one. I can make a legitimate claim to belong to the other one. So that was another aspect that which I found in my own research, and I have argued in my research work, but I could see here actually much more vividly when we were doing the documentary. Okay, one final question. This is usually the most difficult question. What have you missed? Was there an aspect that you have missed, or you could have developed better? You could have done this and that. And probably there are lots of things that we missed and have developed. Let me mention one missed opportunity that I personally particularly regret. I will explain why we couldn't develop it, even though we were aware of it. You don't see much in the film about the relations between the Maronites and the Turkish Cypriots, especially because we have filmed a lot in Kormagidis, which is in the north, for those of you who don't know. So there were a lot of there are relations that the Maronites have with the Turkish Cypriot authorities. And there were very interesting encounters. For example, Maronites talking to the Turkish army about having water during the summer. Because they don't have enough water in the village, they have to negotiate with the Turkish army in order to get water from a neighboring village. And this is where the army helps. You can see the army as an occupying force, which is in many respects, at least Greek Cypriots and Maronites in the area, but at the same time, they can negotiate with the army in order to get things. So ambivalence. The army is there. There was a period when the Turkish army actually had a few houses in the village that were occupied, or occupied some other Maronite villages. Asomatos and Agia Marina are military camps. So idealizing the Turkish army. How does this community negotiate with them? Fascinating that they managed to negotiate and have very good relations. Okay, these are the tactics of the weak, the weapons of the weak, that find ways to negotiate their difficult situation. But it was very sensitive to film this kind of relations with the Turkish Cypriots for various reasons, especially with the army, because I don't think people would have come out as genuine, afraid that they would be seen as these or that, etc. Here, another aspect that is interesting to Kormagidis is that you don't have, there are not settlers or Turkish migrants in Kormagidis. They are in other villages, but not in Kormagidis. With the exception of one family, at least at the time we were filming, you may have seen the one at the end, which we showed at the end. Now, that was also a story that we wanted to write more about, or actually film more. We had some shoots. Then it didn't work. It's a very interesting family. He came there. These are not settlers who came and occupied the house of a Greek Cypriot. These were settlers who were brought there to look after a Maronite priest for many years, who had no family, so they were looking after him. And then they stayed in the village. And their son speaks Arabic, not just Turkish, learn the language. The language that is in a process of extinction is being spoken by one of the members of the family who was fully integrated, go to the church as well. It's a very interesting story there, but that we didn't manage to cover. Anyway, thank you very much for